first of all, I would like to congratulate you for your new album. I think it's great, and
Thank you.
I think that you have like you always are known like as a blues player, but I think there's a lot of variety of styles. You have like you have the slow blues shuffles, but you also have like there's like a song "Leave It All Behind," like kind of soul with the horn section. Then you have like the fertile soil, which reminds me a little bit of Eagles or kind of country. So were you looking for all these different styles, or it just came natural to you?
It just comes to me. When I'm writing songs, I'm not trying to fit into any one genre or any one sort of box. I just like to write. I have this thing called Safe, and every time it goes off, no, I just write songs, man. I don't try to worry about fitting into a box.
Okay, that's great. And when you write like the horn section, if in Leave It All Behind, do you do all the arrangements, or you also work with any arranger?
No, that was the keyboard player Teddy Zigzag did the horn arrangement, and he also did the string arrangement on the ballad.
Ah, okay, that's nice. So when you compose, well, do you start with the music or with the lyrics, or how do you manage the composing stuff?
Well, it's different with each song. Sometimes you have the lyrics, and then other times you have the music. Some of these, like the title track there, I actually have had those lyrics for probably maybe 2 years. I wrote it really sort of as a poem, and then I just put it to music. So, and then other times I have musical ideas. Um, the I'm trying to think the song Destiny. That was a musical idea that I had. I had the chords and I had the melody, but I had to write the lyrics to it. So sometimes it's music, sometimes it's lyrics.
Okay, that's nice. And I imagine that you recorded all the tracks playing live, because I mean the music seems very organic, and blues seems to, or sometimes you record like by parts.
Yeah, I I like to record the band live. I think that's the best way to get the music to sound good. But then, of course, you can always go back and change things or fix things. But we always start off. We set up in a. I want a studio with a big room, and we set the band up in the room, and we just play the songs. And sometimes we play them 3 or 4 times, and then we pick the best version.
Yeah, that sounds nice. Yeah, that takes me to another question I wanted to do. Like when you're writing music, do you have some ideas and then go to the rehearsal room to play with the guys, see how it sounds, or you also use like technology like samplers, to get the idea of how will it sound?
No, no, we don't. I don't use samplers. I'm an old guy. I get together with the band, and we play the songs, and maybe we change them around a little bit, or maybe we say, let's do that one a little faster or a little slower. And I work with the musicians. I don't do samples and computers and all that shit.
Okay, that's good. The old way.
Yeah, I'm a old fella, and I like doing it the old way, where you just go in and you play and you press record.
Well, I mean, I don't think you're that tall, but your music sounds with the same energy that 30 years ago. I mean, I think this CD is great, and you're playing great. So
Oh, thanks, man. I really, on this one, I set out to actually play less notes and have it mean more, because I got tired of going on Facebook and YouTube and seeing a 10-year-old who's playing at the speed of light. And I figured what I can do is play with feeling and emotion and not try to not try to worry about technical stuff, you know.
Yeah, I think that. Do you think that we are losing like sensitivity, feeling? Because I agree with you. I play the guitar myself, and I also agree with that. That today technique is like at a level so incredible level, but sometimes I see these guys playing and they don't give me any emotion. I would listen to Gilmour or Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and you can feel like the feeling. But right now it seems like too technical but not emotional.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's what I'm saying about I'm really sick to death of going online and seeing somebody else tapping and playing at the speed of light and then looking at the camera like, look what I can do. And it becomes like sports. Look how fast I can play and all this kind of shit. And there's no there's no music in it anymore. Music should be an art, something you feel, right?
Completely, yeah. And I think also another thing that happens with media and the social networks is that they play by themselves with a machine. I mean, music is supposed also to be played with other people. The best thing if you play is sharing stage with some other people, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, all these guys sitting in their bedroom playing along to a track and putting it up, and it's just I can't take it anymore. I want to hear somebody play with some feeling. I want to hear a band play where they play together. I want to hear a good song. I want to hear some good lyrics and some guy who's on there, you know, just going off and showing off technique. I'm just bored with it. I've gotten bored with all that stuff. I'd much rather listen to Hound Dog Taylor than some of these guys.
Yeah, and I was thinking, you have been very known like as a guitarist, but I think your voice is quite unique, and I really like the way you sing. So sometimes you feel that because I don't know if it only happens to you, but some of the blues guitarists, I'm thinking like from the recent ones like Johnny Lang or people like that they sing great, and sometimes they are famous because of the guitar and should be like more recognize their voice.
Yeah, well, Johnny Lang is one of the greatest singers in the history of the world, I think. And right now he's retired because he has problems with his voice. But that guy was just incredible, I thought. And I was very lucky to do a lot of shows with him and become his friend. He's a great person, but he was one of the greatest blues singers ever. And he was known for nobody could sing like that guy. He was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. Wow, that's a sad news. I didn't know that he retired. I think he was already playing. So and yeah, I love Johnny Lang. I mean, I the first time I saw him like I was in United States and I saw him in the Jay Leno show and I was like blown away. Next day I went to buy his CD like like crazy.
Yeah, me too. And the thing is, when he was 14 years old, he could sing like that. If you go listen to his very first album,
Yeah, Lie to Me. Yeah, I have it. Yeah.
he did when he was 14, and he that dude's mind blowing, man.
Yeah, I remember because I discovered him in the second CD, but when he opened the voice, it's like, wow, he looks like a 50-year-old guy that has been drinking whiskey all his life. It's like, that's incredible.
That's exactly right. Yep. So I wish all the best for him, and I hope he's able to come back because he's got some problems, some physical problems right now with his voice. And I think he sings so hard. I think he might have hurt himself.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, I hope he recovers too. Let's hope for the best. You think, now we're talking about him, you think right now there's like, I mean, blues. There's many artists like hitting it big, like Joe Bonamassa, Joe Smith, Eric Gales, Robin Ford still there, Kenny Wayne Shepherd. How do you really you have friendship with them? You have what do you think about these guys?
Well, they're all my friends. and I think they're all great, you know. And I'm very honored and happy to be friends with all those guys you mentioned, and and I get to play with them. I'm going to be on Joe's cruise at the end of August, and I'll get to play with all those guys. And so they're all great, man, and they're carrying the torch for this music.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think they are great too. Okay, I would like to go back in time a little bit. I read that you said that when you were very young, you had the chance that your mom took you to a Duke Ellington concert, and that it was like a changing point in your life. Can you tell me a little bit of the experience?
Well, it was Duke Ellington was playing at a theater near my house. And my mother said, let's go buy some tickets. And we went to the theater in the afternoon, and all these cars drove up, and all these very well dressed, black men got out of the cars, and they were carrying horn cases. And my mom said, hey, that's Duke Ellington and the orchestra. And we went around to the stage door, and she knocked on the door and said, my son is a trumpet player, and do you think he could maybe get an autograph? And at that point, a saxophone player named Paul Gonzalez walked outside, and I looked at him and I said, you're Paul Gonzalez. And he said, yes, I am. And then I said, I love the solo you do on diminuendo and crescendo and blue, where you play 27 choruses and you start a riot at the Newport Jazz Festival, and they had to stop the band. And it's all on the record, Ellington at Newport. And the guy was like, wow, here's this 10-year-old white kid who knows our music. He goes, come on in. And he said to the orchestra, hey, this kid knows all our music. And at that point, I saw Johnny Hodges, and I said, hey, you're Johnny Hodges, man. I really love the way you play Mood Indigo. And then there was Cat Anderson. He was a trumpet player who played everything like 3 octaves higher. And I said, and Cat Anderson, how do you do that? And he got out his trumpet, and he gave me a trumpet lesson, and he tried to teach me how to play those high notes with my lips. And then I got to sit down on this couch and talk with Duke Ellington. And so I spent, a couple hours with those guys, and it was incredible. And Duke Ellington was the nicest, most humorous, warm, charismatic human being. And we walked out of there, and I said to my mom, if being a musician makes you like that, that's what I want to do.
That's very that's very profound, deep, impressive, because you like a very deep thought for someone that you would be very young, right? You would be like a kid that or
Yeah, I was 10 years old. Yeah.
that's impressive that you were thinking that. But by the way, I don't want to get too personal, but I think your mom was named Lynette, right?
Yes.
And I have your CD since I was since 30 years ago. Your No More Fish Jokes live CD, and I love the cover you do from the Girl from the North Country from Dylan.
Yeah.
And you always said this song goes to the Lynette, and I always wondered who was Lynette.
Well, okay. Yeah. The reason I dedicated that to her on that album was when I was a kid and I'd be sitting around the house with my acoustic guitar, sitting in the living room playing. My mother would say to me, Walter, I was Walter to her, Walter, play that pretty Bob Dylan song for me. And I would play and sing that song to her, and she loved it. And so that started off. I did that on there really as a tribute to her, because she passed away 2 months before I made the album Prisoner of a Dream. And so she used to sit down and I would sing that song, and so I dedicated it to her memory.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's great. Keeping with the same, past. When you started, when you decided to leave the trumpet, start playing guitar, what happened?
Well, I was playing the trumpet and I was actually pretty good at it. You know, I was really I was a good trumpet player, but when I started hearing folk music back in 1961, 62, the first Bob Dylan album, or the Chad Mitchell Trio, or the New Christie Minstrels, or Mississippi John Hurt, or Josh White, all this folk music that was being played in America, I realized that it all was very simple. It was mainly three chords, and I could learn those chords and I could sit around and play those tunes. And that really started me off on it, you know, and I kind of never looked back. Now, I did play the trumpet all through high school. I played in the orchestra and I played in the marching band. So I continued to play the trumpet until I was about 18 or 19, but the trumpet was not my focus. The guitar was the focus.
And you started pretty young. You played in a band that you were playing with John Lee Hooker, right?
I played with John Lee Hooker. Yes, I did.
How was that experience? Because he's like one of the great legends of blues.
Well, it was amazing because I was a young guy and I was getting to play with an icon, with one of the guys who sort of invented that music, and it was very educational. You know, I got to play with a lot of, I played with him and Big Mama Thornton and Percy Mayfield and Lowell Folsom, Pee Wee Creighton, Eddie Cleanhead Vincent, played with Bobby Hatfield from the Righteous Brothers. I played with Joe Tex, the soul singer. Every one of those guys was an education in music for me. And then of course I got that then of course I got with Canned Heat for 5 years, and then John Mayall, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. I saw when I was young, like many years ago. Yeah, I saw you with John Mayall in Barcelona, and you would play. There was in the band also like the left Coco Montoya playing.
Yeah.
And you were both amazing, and I went by your records and Coco's records, and do you still? I would. This would be like a two question. First, like how was working with John, and then know if you still get in touch with Coco, if you got friendship, and like how was your relation with him?
Well, for the first question, what was it like playing with John? I think I can honestly say that in a 53-year musical career, that was probably the most fun I ever had. There was no pressure. I was not the band leader. I just had to travel around with John, and there was a lot of laughs, and it was great music. And he remains like a father to me. And yes, Coco and I are dear friends. And you know, he's still playing, and I'm still playing, and we have the same booking agency in America, so we're still in touch. I hear from him actually regularly. Yeah.
That's good to hear that. Okay, and I would like to know which have been your like your biggest influences like as a guitarist, like your idols when.
Well, the one that made me want to play electric guitar blues solos was Michael Bloomfield, of course. And then because it was the 60s, you had Eric Clapton and the Cream, and you had Jimi Hendrix, and then a guy who really influenced me a lot was Roy Buchanan. I don't know if you're hip to him. And then to this day, I think the finest electric guitarist on the planet is probably Jeff Beck, you know, and all those guys influenced me.
Yeah, I think Robin Ford also talks about talk about Mick Bloomfield. I think he's like kind of underrated guitarist. I mean, everyone talks like Hendrix, Clapton, Beck, but it's like not many people used to talk about Mike Bloomfield. But
well, he was the guy. He was really the guy that made me want to play. It was that first Paul Butterfield album. And if you listen to that today, his playing is still monumental on there. It's unbelievable. Nobody played like that in 1965. You know, in 1965, the guitar solos people were hearing were George Harrison and Keith Richards, and those guys are great. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but when Mike Bloomfield came out in the middle of 1965 and was playing those blues licks with all of that fire and that passion and that rock and roll aggression, there was nothing like it. He was a trailblazer.
Yeah, that's good. That's great to hear. Another thing I wanted, I don't know if it's too personal and you feel comfortable about it. If you don't want, you don't have to answer.
Yeah.
But I read that you had hard times when you were young, like, you know, drugs and alcohol and stuff. And I heard that Santana and John Mayall were like two guys that really helped you to get over it. I don't know if you want to talk about it. If you want, that's great to hear.
Well, no, that's the truth. You know, John Mayall helped me with that, but what really kind of got me over the line was Carlos Santana. I spent 3 days talking to me, and he gave me a book to read, and he convinced me that it was important that I sober up and that I had a gift of music and that it was my responsibility to nurture it and develop it and share it with the world. So I'm in his debt for that.
Okay, so I guess, you know, for the last question, like for what we are talking, you know, like blues is like a very emotional song, like kind of music. How much of personal stories are in your lyrics and in your music, and how much is like invented or?
It's all from my experience and my life. Every song on there is autobiographical. Actually, every song I've ever written is autobiographical. It's right out of my life. That's the only way I know how to write.